we'll be talking about Fetch API, that is JavaScript Fetch API. The Fetch API is a powerful JavaScript tool that can be used to interact with web APIs. So we're also going to learn about the get, the post, the put, the patch, and then the delete. Also, this tutorial is going to cover the async await used in handling API responses. So how does the Fetch API works? The Fetch API function takes in 1. A URL, second, an option object, which is optional, where you can define the request method, header, and in the body. The Fetch API returns a promise, allowing you to handle responses with then and then error with .cache. So this is the way you have to define the fetch function. That is the fetch and then the URL. Then you make use of the then to handle the response, and then you make use of the cache to handle the what? To handle the error. So in this case now, I have created a file, a JavaScript file, and an index file. So in this one, we don't really have too much information. We just have the user info, the username, and then the user email. And then I've inserted, I've imported the file we are going to make use of, which is this. So the first thing we have to do right now is let's send request. Sending request. So the first thing we have to do out of it is we want to get a request from this particular URL. We want to get a request. We want to get a particular request. That is, this is what we want to get from this particular URL. So let's make use of it. So we have the get request. So let's now say fetch, and then let's insert the URL. This is the URL we are going to be making use of. So because we want to get a particular user, we are going to give it the ID of that user. So in this case, we are going with 1. So what was next we are going to do? Let's concatenate it, that is, let's get the response. So in the case of this, then response and then what? So for us to be able to get the actual data, we are going to what? We are going to turn the response to a JSON object. JSON object simply means JavaScript object notation, and then from there we are going to what? We are going to get the what? We are going to get the data. Then we are going to concatenate it then, and then say data, and then you say console.log data. So this is what we want to do. In the case of this now, for the get response, for the get request rather, we define the fetch function, and then we insert the URL, and then this one simply means you want to get the user ID of 1, and then we turn the response to JSON, and then we are getting back the response. So let's see what we have in our browser. So in the case of this, look at it, it's returning an object. So can you see? So it is returning a name, Lynn Graham, the email, the complaint, the address, the username. So these are the information of the user, which is what it is returning. That is our what? That is our get request. So sorry. So this was the response we get from this, which is this from this. So the next thing we want to do is that we want to move on to the post request. In the case of the post request, it's kind of different. So post request can be used to send data to an API. That is, once you want to create a new user or you want to create anything new, you can use it to send a post request to any API. So to send a post request using fetch, you will need to define the second argument as an option object containing the following. So it must contain a certain object as the option, which is the second parameter. So that is what we are going to be doing here. Number 1, the method. You set the method property to post. Second, the header must include content type header, and you have to set it to application JSON. And then which is the third one, which is the body. Then you use JSON string file to convert the data you are sending into JSON format and then assign it to what, to the property. So let's move on to where we are to do it. Let's move on to the code. Let's write the code. So we want to create a new user in this sense by making use of what, post request. So we want to create a new user. So how do we create a new user now? So we write our fetch function, and then we want to create a new user to this. We are creating a new user to this, and then, like I said, this is the first parameter, which is what? This is the first parameter, this is the first argument, which is what? Which is the URL. Then the second one, which is up to now, but we must send it in the case of this. So what is the first thing you have to do? We write the method. The method will be post, and then also we write the header. The header will be what? Content type. So it will be content type, and then you set it to what? You set it to application /JSON. So that's what you're going to set it to. And then thirdly, the body. So the body, that is body you want to send. So in the case of this now, we have to stringify it. JSON to stringify, and then in the case of this, we are sending the name, and then we are sending the what? The email. So let's say name as what? Victoria, and then email as victoria@gmail.com. Then what's the next thing for you to do? So we want to get the what? We want to get the response, and if we also get the response, we must also to convert it to JSON. So response you say response.json. Then we want to get what? We want to get data. Then let's now say, in the case of this, let's now say dot then again, and then data console.log data. So, and in the case there's an error, let's also put in cache there. So if there's an error, we want to also console.log the error. So that's what we are doing here now. So in the case of this now, this is what we are doing. We want to create a new user, and then for us to be able to create a new user, we must make use of post request. So the post request, we are going to set the header to application.json, and then we are going to stringify the object that we are sending to the API. Then in the case of this, we want to get back, we want to convert the response to JSON, and we want to get the file back. We want to get it to, and then we're also logging it to the console. So this is what we are having right here now. So let's see what we are having. So in the case of this now, can you see now? We have successfully created it. So the name is what? Victoria. The email is what? Victoria@gmail.com. And the ID is what? 11. So that is, it has created what? The ID of that user was 11. So you can easily use the ID to retrieve the user information. So in the case of this now, so what's the next thing for us? What's the next thing for us to do now? The next thing for us to do right now is what? The put request. So the put request replaces existing data or create a new data similar to post, but used to override resources. In the case of put request, if you want to override any resources, you can make use of what? Or if you want to override any data, you can make use of what? Of the put request. So let's move on to our code, and then let's write some certain things about it. So the put request, and this we want to what? Let's just say, what do we want to do for the put request? We want to replace an existing data. Replace an existing data. That's what we want to do. So let's write the fetch function, and then put put in the URL, and then in the case of this, you want to replace an existing data of an ID 1. So what's the next thing for us to do now, right? So we are going to set the method. Don't forget, like the way we did the post, we set the method to put. Also, we are going to put the header. The header will be what? Content type. And it's going to be what? It's going to be application JSON. So, and then the body, we stringify the body to what? JSON.stringify. What are we having? Having the what? Having the name to be Daniel. So let's just put the name alone. Let's just the name to be Daniel. And then also let's also update the email. So the email can be dami@gmail.com. So let's now get our responses. It's the same thing as what we have above. So let's just copy this case now. I want to copy this one now. But for easy usage, let's just copy this. Let's just copy it and then put it here. So this is what we're having now. For the put request, we want to update a user with the ID of 1. So we set the method to put, we set the header to be content type to what? Application/JSON, and then we want to update the name and then the email. So that's what we are trying to do here. So let's go to our browser and see what we have there. So can you see it now? The line 30. Can you see? So it has been updated. We have Dami, the ID is 1, and then we have the email to put dami@gmail.com. So that is the what? That is the put request. So the next on the line is what? The patch request. From the word patch, the patch request partially update data from a specific resource. That is to update an existing username. You can just make use of patch. So can you see? So let's move on. Let's move on to our code. So we want to make use of what? Patch what? Patch request. Just to what? Partially update a user. So we are going to write our fetch and then the code. Let's copy the URL here. Let's copy the URL here and then let's do it like we've always done. So the section, which is the optional, we set the method to what? To bash. Also, we set the header to what? Content type to what? Application/JSON. And then on the last one, I'm going to set the body to what? JSON.stringify. And then let's just say the name is what? Jane. So, and in the case of this .then, response it will be what? Response.json. Let's also concatenate and get the data. So data to what? Console.log the data, and then if you have any error, so if you have any error, let's see, there's error.catch. If there is any error, so let's console.log the error. So that's what we have in now. So let's now see what we have in the code right now. So can you see? In the case of this now, the ID of 1, name has been updated to Jane, and then the username is Brett, and then the email is there as well. So with the patch, we just partially updated the name, unlike the put request whereby we updated everything. So that is what we're having here. So the next one we're having right now is the delete request. So the delete request will remove the resources permanently. To run a delete request with fetch, you only need to specify the URL for the resources to delete, and then the method delete property as well as follow. So this is just what you need to do. You just want to know what to do. So let's just delete the request. Let's make it of delete request. So like I was doing fetch, let's put the URL here. This is the URL, and then we want to delete the ID of one, the user that has the ID of one, and then the method from what has been stated here, it is what delete, and then what do you have next? Let's concatenate it to then, and you see response results console.log deleted. And let's see, let's put the response here. So let's check our delete request. So can you see it has been deleted, and then this is it here. So it has been deleted right away. So let's now move on. So look at it now, the differences between the put and the patch method. The put method replaces the entire resources and then update with the updated data, while the patch method modifies only the specific field in the resource, like we've done here now. In the case of the put here now, which is the put, where's the put? We updated the entire resources, the entire data. But in the case of the patch, we just updated the name, and then it's what it works well for what we've done. So lastly, I said we'll be talking about async await. So you can also make use of async await to get a user information, because async await make it much more easier to do. Because in the case of .then and then .cache, if you have a lot of information you want to get, so it will just keep cycling. But in the case of async await, it makes the code much more cleaner and much more readable to read. It makes it much more readable. So that is one thing about async await. So let's now fetch a data from a specific user. So let's write a function, and then for us to make use of async, we have to make use of async first, async function, and then let's name it fetch data. So this one is not properly spelled. So in the case of this, let's make use of try and catch block. So the first thing that we use as const response. The response will be what? Await. We are making use of await with what? Async. Await fetch. So we want to fetch the data of a specific user. Can you see? But in this case now, let's just name it 2. User 2. So const data, and then let's now see await response.json. So the next thing we want to do is just now, let's now console.log. Let's log it to the terminal. console.log data. And then in the case of this, let's just say console.log error. So that is, if it is not successful, then we want to console.log the error. Then what's the next thing for us? The next thing for us is now to call the function, which is fetch data. So let's now move on to our browser to check it out. So can you see? Well, I'm not seeing it yet. So let's now check it out. So this is it over here. Can you see the ID of 2? So we have a ring. Well, so far so good. We've been able to discuss about JavaScript Fetch API. So we make use of it. URL, which is typical, and then so let's now do this whereby we want the JavaScript, the data we are getting from the URL, we want it to appear on what? We want it to appear on the front end. That is, we want to call it on the front end. So let's now go to the post. So in the case of this now, so I've defined this here now. In the case of this, let's now insert the information we are getting, that is the name and then the email. Let's now insert it here. So let's move on to the post method. In the case of the post method now, which is this, so we've concatenated the response with JSON, and then this is where we are going to work on, which is the data. So let's clean up this, and then let's now see this. So but before that, we've named this. Can you see? We have the ID of username and the ID of user email. So let's now call it here. Let's call it by making use of document.getID, get element by ID. So the username, we have the user name, and then now say document.get element by ID. We want to get it by the username, and then also the user email. It's what document.get element by ID, which is what user email. This is what we are having here now. So in the case of this, so let's now say this. So we want to say username dot text context equals to what? Let's make use of the template data by saying name and what? Make use of this, and now say data name. Same in the case of this as well. So I'll press alternate shift and then arrow down. So it's what gave me this. So let's now say user email. So change to user email, and then this will be data.email. So let's see what we have here. So in the case of this one will be what? This one will be email. So let's see what we have in the front end. So you can see now, it has populated it. So we make use of the fetch API to do what? To get the response from this data. That is, we set the response in the sense that we send the data to the API, and then we now want to retrieve it, and then we got it here by making use of JavaScript. So far so good. We've been able to deal with fetch API and then different kind of requests. We dealt with the get request, the post request, the put request, the pass request, and then also lastly the delete request. And then we also make use of async habit. We also talked about the differences between the pass and then the put. So far so good. We've been able to do all this. So thanks so much. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for staying to the end, and then watch out more for more videos. Thank you.